The airport buzzed with tired voices, the constant announcements echoing over the intercom, and the dull hum of fluorescent lights that seemed to sap the life out of everyone waiting. I sat slouched in one of the hard chairs, my suitcase by my feet, and my phone clutched in my hand as I refreshed my email for the 100th time. Flight cancelled. The words glared back at me from the airline app like a cruel joke. My shoulders slumped. I had been looking forward to getting home, curling into my bed, escaping the chaos of travel. Instead, I was stranded in this endless maze of gates, terminals, and coffee shops that smelled like burnt beans. I sighed heavily and ran a hand through my hair, realizing just how exhausted I was. It wasn't just the canceled flight. It was the long day, the stress of missed connections, and the gnawing loneliness of sitting in a crowded airport where everyone seemed to have somewhere to go but me. I hugged my jacket around myself and tried to look less miserable than I felt. That's when I noticed him. Across the row of chairs, a man leaned casually against a post, his duffel bag at his feet. He had an ease about him, as if the canceled flights and restless crowds couldn't touch him. His broad shoulders filled out his dark jacket, and a few strands of messy hair fell across his forehead, giving him a rugged, just-out-of-bed look. But it was his eyes that caught me, calm, steady, and piercing, as if he could see right through the noise and find the quiet. Our eyes met briefly. I looked away too quickly, heat rising in my cheeks, but my heart gave a strange little flutter. Rough night. His voice was smooth, warm, and carried easily over the bustle of the terminal. I glanced up again, startled that he was talking to me. He gave me a crooked smile that tugged at the corners of his lips, like he knew I needed one. "You could say that," I muttered, trying not to sound too defeated. "Flight cancelled. No hotel vouchers. Just stuck here." He shifted, picking up his bag and walking over to sit a seat away from me. My pulse quickened at his nearness. He didn't smell like the airport. He smelled fresh, like clean soap with a hint of something deeper, masculine, and warm. "Same here," he said, setting his bag down. "Seems fate has a cruel sense of humor tonight." I gave a small laugh, surprised at how easily he could pull one out of me. Cruel's one word for it. He leaned back, stretching out his long legs in front of him, and tilted his head to study me. "So, what's worse, missing where you were going, or being stuck here with me?" The teasing edge in his tone caught me off guard, and I found myself smiling despite the exhaustion. "Well, I don't even know you yet, so I'll hold my judgment." "Fair enough," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Ethan." I hesitated a moment before taking it, my fingers brushing against his. His grip was firm but not overpowering, and there was something about the warmth of his touch that lingered even after he let go. "Linda," I said softly, my name feeling suddenly different on my lips under his gaze. "Linda," he repeated, like he was tasting it, slow and deliberate. Nice to officially meet the woman fate decided to strand me with tonight. His confidence wasn't arrogant, it was disarming. And I couldn't ignore the way his eyes lingered on mine, holding me there, as if the noise of the airport faded into the background. We sat in silence for a moment, the hum of announcements and rolling suitcases filling the air around us. But there was a spark now, something unspoken between us. I felt it in the way his knee brushed lightly against mine when he shifted, in the way his voice seemed to wrap around me when he spoke again. "So," Ethan said, leaning just a little closer, "what do you usually do when life throws a night like this at you?" I laughed lightly, shaking my head. "Honestly? Cry, complain, and eat something sugary until I feel better." He grinned, his teeth flashing. "Not a bad plan. But maybe tonight, you let a stranger keep you company instead. Might be more fun." His words hung between us, playful yet filled with a promise of something deeper. I felt a thrill run through me, a dangerous curiosity sparking inside. Maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe it was the loneliness, but something in me wanted to say yes. I hesitated only a moment before nodding. Company might not be so bad. Ethan's smile widened, satisfied, and he rose to his feet, motioning for me to follow. "Come on. I know the only place open at this ungodly hour. The coffee's questionable, but it beats sitting here staring at canceled flight screens." I gathered my bag and trailed after him, noticing the confident way he moved through the terminal, weaving effortlessly through the weary passengers stretched out on chairs and the blinking lights of closed shops. His height made it easy to keep up, and I couldn't help but watch the way his shoulders filled out his jacket. The cafe he led me to sat tucked away near a quieter corner of the terminal. Dimly lit, with a few scattered tables and the low hum of an espresso machine, it was a little oasis in the chaos. A bored barista took our orders. Black coffee for him, a latte for me, and Ethan paid, without hesitation, brushing off my attempt to protest. "Consider it a welcome to our shared misfortune," he said, handing me the steaming cup. I smiled faintly, wrapping my hands around the warmth. We found a table tucked into the corner, far enough from the few other travelers that it felt oddly private, like our own little world. "So," he began, leaning back in his chair, studying me over the rim of his cup, "tell me something. If you weren't stuck here tonight, where would you be right now?" I blew gently on my latte, then sighed. "Honestly?
Home.
In pajamas. Probably binge-watching some guilty pleasure show and eating leftover pasta." He chuckled, the sound low and rich. "You know, I was expecting something more glamorous. A big presentation, a romantic getaway, a daring adventure." I smirked. "Sorry to disappoint." "Not disappointed," he said smoothly, his eyes locking onto mine. "Just means I get to imagine you in pajamas now." The boldness of his words sent heat rushing to my cheeks, and I ducked my head, laughing nervously. "You really don't waste time, do you?" "Life's too short to waste," he replied simply, setting his cup down. His hand brushed against mine across the table, just a fleeting touch, casual enough to seem accidental, but deliberate enough that I felt it spark up my arm. I swallowed, suddenly aware of how close we were leaning. His eyes held mine, dark and steady, and for a moment the air between us thickened with something electric. "So, Linda," he said softly, tilting his head, "what do you usually look for in a stranger?" The question made me laugh again, shaking my head. "In a stranger? I usually try not to look for anything. That seems like a good way to get into trouble." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Sometimes trouble is exactly what we need." The way he said it, low, teasing, edged with promise, made my pulse skip. I shifted in my seat, trying to ignore the warmth pooling low in my stomach. It had been a long time since anyone made me feel this alive from just a conversation. We talked for hours, the airport slipping further and further away. He told me about his job, consulting, frequent travel, the kind of lifestyle that explained his calm patience with canceled flights. I told him about mine, about deadlines and family, and the little dreams I rarely admitted out loud. He listened intently, his eyes never drifting, and every time our fingers touched, it lingered just a little longer. By the time my coffee had gone cold, the tension between us was undeniable. My laugh came too easily, my body angled closer, without realizing it. His knee brushed mine again under the table, and this time neither of us moved away. "You know," he said after a moment, his voice a husky murmur, "if someone told me this morning I'd be sitting in a half-empty airport cafe, completely fascinated by a stranger, I would have called them crazy." "And now?" I asked softly. "Now," he said, leaning closer, his breath warm near my ear, "I'm not sure I want the night to end." A shiver ran through me, every nerve suddenly alive. I glanced around, the cafe nearly empty, the terminal quieting as the late hour deepened. The world felt smaller now, like it had shrunk down to just the two of us. For the first time that night, I wondered where this could go. What would happen if I stopped resisting the pull between us? The cafe's lights dimmed as the barista began stacking chairs on tables, signaling closing time. Ethan glanced at me, that crooked grin tugging at his lips again. "Looks like we're being kicked out," he murmured, rising to his feet. He slung his bag over his shoulder and held out a hand toward me. I hesitated for just a second before slipping my fingers into his. His hand was warm, strong, and the simple touch sent a thrill through me. He didn't let go as we stepped back into the terminal, where the energy had quieted to a low hum. Most of the shops were closed now, their shutters drawn. Travelers sprawled across benches with jackets pulled over their heads, the occasional announcement echoing through the near-empty halls. Ethan walked slowly, guiding me through the hushed space as if we weren't stranded passengers, but something else entirely, like two conspirators stealing a secret night together. Ever notice how airports feel completely different at night? He asked softly. I glanced around.
He was right.
Without the chaos of crowds, it felt intimate, almost eerie, like the place belonged only to us. It's strange, I admitted. Kind of lonely, but kind of beautiful too. He gave my hand a squeeze.
Exactly.
We passed a wall of windows, the dark runway stretching endlessly outside, dotted with blinking lights. Ethan stopped and turned toward me, still holding my hand. His eyes reflected the faint glow from the tarmac, steady and unreadable, yet burning with something I could feel in my chest. You're shivering, he murmured. I'm fine, I whispered, though I wasn't sure if it was the chill of the air conditioning or the heat of his nearness, making me tremble. He stepped closer, his free hand brushing a stray lock of hair from my face. The gentleness of the gesture caught me off guard, his fingers lingering a moment longer against my skin. My breath hitched, the air between us charged, every nerve alive. Linda, he said quietly, my name rolling off his tongue like a secret. I met his gaze, and in that instant the space between us seemed impossibly small. His thumb traced along my jaw, featherlight, as if asking permission. My heart pounded so hard I swore he could hear it. And then his lips brushed mine. It wasn't hurried or careless. It was soft at first, testing, as though he wanted to savor the moment. But the spark that ignited in that kiss was undeniable. My eyes fluttered closed, and I leaned into him, my hands curling against his chest as his mouth pressed more firmly to mine. The kiss deepened, his arms sliding around my waist, pulling me closer until I could feel the steady thrum of his heartbeat. The exhaustion of the day melted away, replaced with heat that spread through every inch of me. I parted my lips slightly, and he responded instantly, his tongue brushing mine in a way that made my knees weaken. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against mine, both of us breathless. Trouble, I whispered, echoing his earlier words. His low laugh vibrated against me. The best kind. We lingered there, wrapped in the shadows of the quiet airport, stealing a moment that felt like it shouldn't exist, but did. His fingers traced slow circles against my hip, his lips brushing my temple before he pulled back enough to meet my eyes again. Come on, he said softly, his voice husky. Let's find somewhere a little more private. My pulse raced as I let him lead me further down the quiet terminal, past darkened shops and empty gates, until we found a secluded corner near an unused lounge. The world outside seemed miles away, and all that mattered now was the magnetic pull between us. The lounge was closed, its lights dim, but the leather chairs near the corner were unoccupied, hidden from the main hallway by a half-wall. It felt secluded, safe, like the airport had gifted us this private space. Ethan dropped his bag to the floor and turned to me, his eyes dark with the same hunger I felt pulsing through me. He stepped closer, closing the distance slowly, giving me every chance to walk away. But my body didn't want to move, except closer. Are you sure? He asked softly, his voice a low rasp that vibrated through me. Yes, I whispered, surprising myself with how certain it sounded. That was all it took. His mouth claimed mine with urgency, lips hot and insistent, tongue sliding against mine in a kiss that stole my breath. His hand slid around my waist, pulling me flush against him, and I melted into him, my fingers clutching the collar of his jacket. The world disappeared, the announcements, the distant roll of suitcases, even the thought of tomorrow. There was only this man, this moment, this need that burned too hot to deny. Ethan backed me gently against the wall, his mouth never leaving mine. The rough texture of the wall pressed against my back, grounding me as his hands roamed with more certainty now, tracing the curve of my waist, skimming upward, teasing me through the thin fabric of my shirt. I gasped into his kiss, arching into his touch, the sound swallowed by his lips. He groaned softly, the vibration sending a thrill through me, and his hands moved with growing impatience, sliding lower, cupping me possessively, making my pulse race. When his lips finally trailed from my mouth to my jaw, then down the side of my neck, I shivered uncontrollably. His breath was hot against my skin, his mouth leaving a path of fire as he nipped gently at the sensitive spot just below my ear. Ethan, I breathed, my voice trembling with need. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes, his thumb brushing across my lips. "Tell me to stop and I will," he murmured. Instead, I kissed him harder, desperate and hungry, my fingers tangling in his hair. That was all the answer he needed. He lifted me easily, my legs wrapping around his waist instinctively as he carried me the few steps to one of the oversized lounge chairs. He lowered me onto it, his body covering mine, heat radiating from him in waves. Every inch of me burned for him. Every glance, every touch, every brush of his lips only made me ache for more. The stranger I had met hours ago now felt like the only thing I needed in this world. The leather chair was too small for the fire that had sparked between us, but neither of us cared. Ethan's body pressed down against mine, his kiss deep and demanding, our breaths mingling in desperate hunger. His hands roamed my sides, sliding beneath my shirt, his palms warm against bare skin that tingled at his touch. I gasped softly as his lips left mine to trail down my throat, each kiss lower than the last, each one pulling me further out of the world and deeper into his. My fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, urging him on, my body arching beneath him as if it already knew exactly what it wanted. "God, Linda," he whispered against my skin, his voice husky and raw. The way he said my name made my chest tighten, my stomach flutter, my whole body ache for him. I tugged at his jacket, fumbling to push it off his shoulders. He let it fall carelessly to the floor, never breaking from me, his hands sliding lower, gripping my hips firmly, as if he was afraid to let go. His kiss grew rougher, hungrier, and I matched it, every ounce of restraint crumbling away. The quiet corner of the airport seemed to shrink around us, the rest of the world forgotten. There was only the heat of his body, the taste of his mouth, the feel of his hands exploring me, with growing urgency. I pressed against him, feeling the hard proof of his desire, and a low groan escaped his throat. The sound sent a jolt of heat racing through me, and I arched into him, desperate for more. "You're dangerous," I breathed against his lips, though my voice trembled with need. He smiled faintly, his forehead resting against mine. "So are you." And then there was no more talking, only the rush of passion, the sound of ragged breathing, the desperate rhythm of two strangers who had been pulled together by fate and couldn't stop now. His touch was everywhere, soft and teasing one moment, firm and demanding the next, drawing me deeper into a night I never could have imagined when my flight was canceled. Every kiss, every caress, every shiver of anticipation pulled me closer to the edge of something I didn't want to resist. Ethan's mouth claimed mine again, hotter this time, his tongue sliding against mine as if he wanted to taste every ounce of me. My hands roamed down his back, pulling him closer, my body already burning with a need I couldn't deny. His weight pressed me deeper into the chair, every movement sending sparks through my veins. His fingers slid beneath the hem of my shirt, lifting it slowly, deliberately, giving me the chance to stop him, but I didn't. I wanted more. I raised my arms, letting him pull the fabric away and toss it aside. His eyes swept over me with raw hunger, lingering long enough to make me shiver under the intensity of his gaze. "You're beautiful," he murmured, his hand brushing along my side, pausing just under the curve of my breast. The compliment, so simple and unguarded, made me flush with heat. And then his mouth was on me again, kissing, tasting, trailing fire down my collarbone. His lips closed over me, teasing with a slow, delicious rhythm that made me arch into him, my breath coming faster, my fingers clutching at his shoulders. I could feel the steady thrum of his heartbeat against mine, faster now, matching the frantic rhythm building between us. His hands slid lower, exploring every curve, every inch of skin, until he reached the waistband of my jeans. I gasped when he unbuttoned them with practiced ease, his fingers slipping inside, brushing against the heat he'd already ignited. My body jolted at the contact, a soft moan escaping me before I could stop it. He groaned in response, his lips crashing back to mine, devouring the sound, his touch growing bolder, deeper. "Ethan," my voice trembled, half plea, half surrender. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. "Tell me you want this." "I do," I whispered without hesitation, my body aching, desperate. "I want you." That was all he needed. Clothes were shed in a blur of urgency, each layer only heightening the heat between us. Soon, there was nothing left between our bodies, just skin against skin, burning, needy, alive. His hands gripped my hips as he pressed himself against me, and the sensation made me cry out softly, my fingers digging into his back. He kissed me again, slower this time, savoring it, as if he wanted to brand the memory into both of us. And then, with a low groan, he pushed inside me. The shock of pleasure stole my breath. I clutched him tighter, my head tipping back as he filled me completely, the stretch sending waves of heat radiating through me. He held still for a moment, his forehead pressed to mine, both of us trembling, our breaths mingling in the quiet. Then he began to move. Slow at first, his hips rolling with measured precision, every thrust pulling a moan from my lips. My body responded instinctively, meeting his rhythm, the chair creaking softly beneath us as the world outside ceased to exist. His hand slid up my thigh, gripping firmly, guiding me closer as the pace quickened, the need between us spiraling higher. The sound of our breathing, the heat of our skin, the wet, desperate rhythm, it was intoxicating. Each movement built on the last, faster, harder, the tension coiling inside me tighter and tighter until I could hardly think. My nails dug into his shoulders, my cries muffled by his kiss as the pressure reached its breaking point. "Ethan," I gasped, my body trembling violently, the wave of release crashing over me with breathtaking intensity. My cries echoed softly in the quiet lounge, muffled only by his lips, his arms holding me through every shuddering pulse. He followed moments later, a guttural sound torn from his chest as his body tensed, his release joining mine in a rush of heat and urgency. He buried his face in my neck, his grip tightening as he gave in completely, every movement raw and unrestrained until finally, he collapsed against me, both of us spent, clinging to one another. For a long moment, we lay tangled together, our chests rising and falling in sync, the only sound our labored breaths. His fingers traced lazy patterns along my side, grounding me as the intensity slowly ebbed. "I wasn't supposed to want this," I whispered, my voice still shaky. He kissed my temple gently. "Maybe you were supposed to find me instead." I smiled faintly, my eyes closing, letting the warmth of him and the weight of his words sink in. The airport outside could have been 1,000,000 miles away. The soft glow of dawn crept through the tall airport windows, painting streaks of gold across the empty lounge. I stirred against Ethan's chest, my cheek still pressed to the warmth of his skin. For a fleeting moment, I forgot where we were. It felt like we were anywhere but an airport, as if time had frozen for us alone. His fingers lazily stroked my hair, and when I tilted my head up, he was already watching me, his eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. "Morning," he whispered, voice husky, worn from the night we'd shared. "Morning," I replied, my lips curving into a small smile. Neither of us moved right away. The reality waiting outside this hidden corner of the airport pressed in slowly, reminding me that flights would resume, people would fill these empty halls, and we'd have to step back into our separate lives. "Your flight?" I asked quietly, brushing my thumb across his jaw. "In a few hours," he said, his gaze holding mine, as if he didn't want to look away. "Yours?" "Same." The silence stretched, not awkward but heavy with all the things we weren't saying. Last night had been spontaneous, reckless, maybe even crazy, but it had also been one of the most real connections I'd ever felt. I sat up slightly, pulling the blanket we'd draped around ourselves tighter, and exhaled. We could pretend this was just one night and walk away. He studied me, then reached up to trace a finger along my lips. "Do you want to pretend?" I shook my head slowly.
No.
His smile was faint but full of relief. He leaned up, kissing me softly, nothing like the heated urgency of the night before. This kiss was gentle, lingering, a promise wrapped in tenderness. "Then don't," he murmured against my lips. "Give me your number. Let's see where this goes. No rules. No pretending." I couldn't help but laugh softly, shaking my head at how unreal it all felt. I'd met him in the most unlikely place, in the strangest circumstances, and yet somehow it felt right. So I handed him my phone, watching as he saved his number, typing his name, Ethan, like it was a secret I wanted to keep forever. He handed it back, and we kissed again, slow and deep, sealing it with a silent vow neither of us had spoken aloud. Hours later, When the airport buzz returned and boarding announcements echoed through the terminals, we dressed quietly, gathering our scattered clothes and stolen moments. At the gate, surrounded by strangers rushing past, he pulled me close one last time, his lips brushing my ear. "This isn't goodbye," he whispered. "It's just the beginning." I nodded, my heart pounding with equal parts fear and exhilaration. And as I boarded my flight, glancing back at him one last time, I knew he was right. One stranger, one night, one kiss, and maybe the start of something neither of us had expected.